What's up, everybody? It's Clinton and Fab here with Team Haig. Today we're being joined by Rob Scaglione of Mortgage Architects. He's going to give us some insight into the finance world.
Yeah. Hey, Rob, how's it going?
Great. Thanks for having me, guys.
No problem. Thanks for coming on. And so just some questions, obviously, with all this going on. Just wanted to see your perspective on how things are going. And obviously the one that probably you hear a lot is can you tell us a little bit about, from your end, what's a deferral program that everybody's probably been hearing about?
Yeah, it's actually a big question. It's a burning question, I would assume, that everyone has on their mind, especially if they're impacted by this pandemic, I guess, from lots of different ways financially. So basically, a deferment would be in its true form a deferral of payment where you are actually not making a payment for a period of time. And if it's a reference to a mortgage, that would be you not paying your principal plus interest payment if that's what you have set up, for a length of time that's deferred by determined by the institution itself.
Okay, and how long can people defer right now on their mortgage?
Well, it's a question that I can't probably answer specifically because every institution has different policies on how they're doing this and how they are actually planning to do a deferment. So not everyone does it the exact same way or have the same policies. So I have heard different formats, but I have heard some institutions going as far as 6 months for a deferment. Okay. So where someone might not pay for 6 months, maybe sooner, of course, if this situation resolves quicker.
Sure. And can anyone qualify for it? Like, is it specific people that qualify, or do you have to have some sort of qualification to get it?
Well, I would assume the qualification would be that you don't have any income, first and foremost, but I can't speak again for every institution. Every institution would have something different that they would use to identify an individual that needs this benefit to help them through the situation they're in. So I think it'd be particularly better to say that it would depend on the individual and what situation that individual's in to see if this would be something that they should do or can do.
Okay. And what happens when you do defer and you haven't paid for, let's say, 4 months or 5 months or 6 months? Let's say you got that. What happens once you start to pay back? Does the payment change? Is there interest tacked on? How does that work exactly?
Good question. And again, I hate to keep on saying the same thing, but it's hard to say. Each institution has different policies. So again, the repayment of the deferral or how the deferral is recalculated after for your payments will again vary depending on the institution that you're working with. One of the big things that we're trying to do here on the financial side from my brokerage firm is we're always trying to find those opportunities to see what that would look like, so we can, of course, build that into the plan that we're trying to accomplish for an individual when we decide on doing a deferral. That's a big thing, is making sure if you understand what a deferral is and how you have to pay it back is part of the decision making if you should do the deferral in the first place. Okay,
so that's kind of what I was thinking was then. So, like, from what you're seeing and what you've dealt with, what kind of people are you finding are deferring? I mean, obviously, from the sounds of it, we don't want people shouldn't be maybe deferring if they don't have to, if they are still working and collecting money. But, is it something that you're dealing with questions about, like, well, should I, if I still have an income, what if I don't? I'm not sure if I'm going to. Should I take the break now or wait? Or, what's your advice maybe that you're giving to people, or your kind of thoughts around that?
Yeah, and this is a great time to have conversations with your financial advisor and look at that, look at your situation independently. So every individual is going to be different. Of course, the first question would be for everyone if you've lost income or have not lost income. So if you're still employed and you're still making the same income you were making before, and you really haven't had to deal with that side of the equation, you should probably just make your payments as is. And that's probably the way the institutions would say to you anyway. But there's a bigger part of the question here, is looking at the financial everyone individually, because some people might have lost their jobs but have lots of savings, but they might be using their savings in different formats. So if they're using their savings that they're in stocks, for example, and they want to take stocks out or cash their stocks in to make those payments because they can afford it that way, that might not be the best financial decision to make, because they might be taking a loss on their stock portfolio. So there's a lot of financial questions to be asked when you're looking at a deferral or when you're looking at making the payments during this situation. So every individual is different. Every situation is different. And really, this is where you should be looking at talking to your financial advisor, or giving a call to like myself to discuss those kind of situations and look at your personal situation and see how we can make it viable for you to go forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I mean, I get it. It's something that they're going to have to talk to you and kind of explain some things before you can give definite answers. And
Yeah.
so,
Not a simple time, not a simple answer.
no, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah,
For everybody,
definitely.
right? Clinton, did you have any questions for Rob?
Yeah, I just had a couple things. One, in regards to home equity line of credits, do you think that is something that would be beneficial to people that may have lost their job if they do have equity in their homes right now, or what are your thoughts on that?
So to use your home equity line of credit to pay the mortgage, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, or just maybe get a home equity line of credit if you're going through hard times right now, just for, household expenses and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. I would think that if there's an opportunity for you to create a little buffer zone for yourself, is a good time to look at some of the things like that if you have that opportunity available to you. But again, I think that's a decision that we have to look at. Okay, is there other alternatives as well besides going into potentially a higher credit program? So some line of credits could be higher cost than say your mortgage. So again, there's some financial analysis that would go into that on what decision is the right one to make for your particular situation.
Yeah, okay. So again, basically it's every situation is individual and look at it that way. Okay,
Yeah,
that makes
it's the best way to look at it. Financially, you don't want to make decisions on the masses. You want to make decisions based on yourself, right? And what your situation looks like.
Yeah, okay, perfect. And then my next question would be, so what happens if someone was approved for a mortgage, they remove subjects, they had an offer on place, they remove subjects, and then prior to completion date, they lost their job. What does that look like for a buyer right now?
And that's a big one. It's a burning question right now. We've had a couple of people in that same situation, and it really depends on the institution. The government's putting some policies in place to protect buyers in that situation. But the best answer I can give is to make sure they're communicating with their financial agent to make sure how that impact personally can affect their purchase. So again, there's not a right answer or the standard answer, but
Yeah.
the government is making sure that people are not in a position to lose anything because of this. So they should be definitely talking to their financial advisor to get that protection.
Okay, perfect. No, thank you. Appreciate that.
And just on that note, I mean, if somebody were to write an offer today, everything's good, they're still working, they come to us because that's kind of what we deal with, right?
Yeah.
They come to us, we go show them a place, they put an offer on a house, everything looks good, they remove their subjects, and day one is 2 months from now. They actually complete on the property in 2 months or 3 months. Things are still as we are right now. We don't see major change, so we're in this position. Have you had anybody ask the question, or do you have an answer to, can they defer as of day one, or is that an issue then, since they're just funding a mortgage for the first day?
Well, I guess in the case that they have not, if they're still employed when they get the mortgage, then they're not in probably a position to defer anyway. But if by any chance they have closed and then they have lost their job, then at that point in time, they would be wanting to communicate with their lending institution or their lending advisor to see what options are available to them. A deferral might be available to them or might not. I'm not, again, I can't answer that specifically to that individual situation because I don't know what lender they're dealing with. And to be honest, I haven't had that yet come front to my desk, but it is a great question to do some more research on and maybe get some more information back to you guys to help you in your situation as you're dealing with clients.
Have you found, since you deal with obviously all different banks and institutions, have you found that some are more lenient than others, or, not specifically, I mean, but just like in general, like have you found you've had an easier time with certain ones? I mean, I know you probably don't want to name one, but I mean, at the same time, just an idea of, you've got options for people out there that seem easier for people, in a tough spot.
No, to be honest, I think every institution right now is really working hard. They're getting inundated with calls to help their clientele base. I think everyone's really pushing the envelope to make sure that the Canadian economy and the Canadian consumer is protected as much as possible. Again, this is history, I guess, for a lot of people and a lot of institutions. So I think they're all trying their best. Is there one easier than the other? I don't think there is one particular. I think everyone is really trying to help the individual out. And that's why it's important to make sure we're getting the right information and make sure we're asking the right questions and doing that analysis for people to make sure they do get the right information so they can make the right decisions for themselves as well.
Yeah, okay, perfect. One thing that kind of came to mind for me, just during this conversation is, I guess if you are in a position where you have already removed subjects and there is a bit of uncertainty with your job, you should be communicating as much as you can with your employer as well as with your financial advisor, your mortgage broker, your institute, to make sure that everything's transparent so you can get as much up-to-date advice as you can throughout the upcoming months.
Correct, 100%. Communication is the key to all of it. So making sure everyone's upfront and clear, then it'll help for everyone to make a proper path going forward.
Awesome.
Yeah. Rob, anything else that you see that maybe we didn't touch on? That's kind of the questions that I think we're dealing with, and people are asking us. Obviously, we don't have the answer either, but that's kind of why we wanted to have you on. But anything on your end that you want to maybe put out there that people need to think about, or questions you've had that
Well, the only thing I would suggest is like you mentioned, you guys are in the situation of dealing with individuals once they remove subjects. I think it's really important that people are making sure they're talking to their financial advisor first, getting that financial advice so they know what they're going into when they go to remove their subjects. So when they remove their subjects, they understand everything they're in, and at that point understand what could happen. And hopefully when they are at that situation with you guys, they don't have those same questions anymore. And that's the key that I'm trying to do, and make sure that people are educated and understand the situation they're in. So when they go forward and remove those subjects, there's really not a lot of extra questions that should change for them going forward.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, okay, awesome.
The more preparation everyone has, I think the better they'll all be.
Yeah, that makes sense.
For sure.
Yeah. Well done, guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I appreciate you having me on today, and good luck to you guys. And of course, for all your clients and anyone that might need some help, please give me a call. You can always talk to Clinton or Fab to get my number, and I'm happy to take call and help out wherever I can.
Awesome. Appreciate that.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks for coming.
All right. There you go.